This is Channel 253.
On this episode of the Grit and Grain podcast.
More and more frequently, the longer and longer I've been in this role, I see it more and more frequently. There's probably also a ton of other businesses that we help to get their one loan that one time and then never, I mean, they just run their business. And
yeah, they're good for forever.
they got their loan, they're good. They're open, they're doing their thing.
Nice.
Don't have aspirations of that kind of growth. But as far as like breweries, no.
Which is fine.
Sorry.
Channel 253 is member supported. I'm producer Doug Mackey, and I hope you will show your support by going to channel253.com/membership and join. Thank you.
Welcome to the Grit and Grain podcast, where we explore and celebrate the craft beer industry, community, and history in Tacoma, Washington, and surrounding Pacific Northwest areas. Thank you so much for hanging out. Let's get to it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Grit and Grain podcast, coming to you guys from Peaks and Pints in Tacoma, Washington. Okay. My name is Matt McLaren. I'm here as always with Ron Swarner.
Hello.
How's it going, Ron?
It's a cruel world.
It's a cruel world.
Cruel.
Okay.
Listen,
A cruel
I had to dig
world.
deep for bank jokes.
Okay, that was a pretty good one. I had to say it out loud to myself to get it. Bethany, how are you today?
Good. I'm great. I was thinking cruel summer. What are we talking
I know.
about?
I was like,
Cruel winter. What?
I'm gonna take you for a
I could
Swiftie.
have done a joke about debits, but you'd have to give me credit.
Jesus Christ! So you're just gonna top load it all with bank jokes, Ron? Doug's also singing on mic right now.
I am completely relaxed and confident today.
I can tell by how serious you were. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. As always, please like and share and subscribe. And if you're free every other Wednesday, come down and hang out live like all you guys did. It's so good to see everybody. And check us out on YouTube. But so we're actually doing a different kind of episode today. This is something I'm pretty excited to talk about. But we have a very quick turnaround on a return guest. Somebody who came in during our Fresh Hop wrap-up episode with a record, something like 140 plus beers, is now back to talk about what he does on the daily and how it actually relates to our industry and maybe the future of our industry. But yeah, our guest today is Austin Patjens.
Hello.
What's up, dude?
Austin.
Hello. Welcome back.
Yeah,
Welcome
thanks
back
for having me
indeed.
back.
How many fresh hops did you have since?
Maybe like 4 more. I don't know. Not a lot. Not a
So we
lot.
caught you at your
4.
peak, really.
Beyond my peak. I was the back end for sure.
What are you drinking?
The Otherland's Czech Dark Lager that was out there.
Same.
Everybody,
Z's.
all of you guys. Well, I'm drinking Cerebral.
I also have a tiny bit of that
Okay,
left.
good. I
Yeah.
didn't re-up any beer before we started. Cerebral's always,
Are you gonna be
It's
okay?
delicious.
and that's what I'm getting on the break. So yeah, we are. If you couldn't tell by Ron's jokes at the beginning of the episode, we're talking about
amateurs.
finance stuff. We're talking about finance stuff today. Austin, can you tell us what you do for your normal day to day?
Sure. So I'm an SBA business loan officer for Heritage Bank. So my territory is Seattle to Eugene, essentially. And I just crank out SBA loans. And SBA is a government-backed, lending program that basically any institution can take part in. As far as when I say institution, banking institution can take part in. And yeah, it's supposed to help small businesses. So that's what breweries are for the most part.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how they start. And then there's that small chunk that end up enormous. But yeah, I know. I'm excited to talk about this actually because we have never really done we haven't dug super deep into the financial side of either starting a brewery or expanding your brewery, and I'm pumped to talk about it. And just if you're listening and you're not thinking to start a brewery or expand your brewery, this is probably stuff that will apply to a lot of small businesses or people who are looking to start small businesses. So yeah, hopefully you guys are tuning in for this one. But yeah, we talked a bit when you and I were like just chatting a bit. And so you've worked with a few breweries in the past, or it's like, you've done SBA loans for some breweries. So you like already have experience with like how your stuff applies. It's not really any different than any other small business.
True.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a funny question for later, actually, which you and I didn't really talk about.
Okay.
But just like intangible stuff that you might use to judge whether or not a brewery qualifies for a loan.
Sounds like a good outro.
And it might be.
What is the number? What is the number that caps small business?
So it's more of a like lending dollar size. So
Okay.
our program's capped at $5 million. So we can't lend anything beyond $5 million to, business. And it has to do with affiliation, which comes down to ownership really. So you can't be 25% owner in a bunch of different small businesses and get $5 million loans at a bunch of different, places. So other than that, as far as like size standard goes, there's not really like there are some rules around it. It has to do with like, it has to do with how much money you're making, bottom line, really. So you could be a pretty big business and still qualify for an SBA loan. So I won't get into too many of like the logistics of all of it. I would say 99% of our breweries in the area could qualify for an SBA loan, presumably.
Yeah, if they did all the right stuff.
Yeah, and if they could get a bank to say yes to it.
Yeah. which is its own challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want to dive into some of that. We talked about like green flags and red flags, like when somebody's coming to you to get SBA money. I'm curious, like, what are the red flags that you can think of? Like if, either any business, but a brewery in particular, if they were coming to get some money, what would turn you off?
Turn off.
Aside from not making money.
Yeah, I would say the primary indicator for SBA lending is cash flow. We're a cash flow lender primarily, so cash flow being your ability to generate bottom line, income for your company. So your capacity to be able to pay back any debt that we're trying to underwrite to. We don't care as much about collateral, which is sort of the secondary piece of repayment for a bank is, your equipment, your tenant improvements, your
house,
your furniture, your fixtures, your equipment. Like that's all stuff that we will lean in the process of underwriting, but that's not really what SBA cares about. SBA cares about your capacity to pay back the loan. And that's really what SBA is there to do, is to be, they provide a guarantee. It's the government providing essentially like an insurance program to the banks, where if the loan does go bad, the bank doesn't lose as much money as they would if they were doing it all on their own.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars each time.
So as far as like, I think talking about red flag, there's all sorts of different red flags that could be out. I think it'd be maybe more interesting to talk about, I guess, like green flags.
Sure.
The helpful things are definitely like experience. That's like one of the key things when you're coming to ask for an SBA loan is your industry experience. So if we have, I get all sorts of requests all the time. If I have somebody who's, been in like a corporate desk job and all of a sudden wants to open up a food truck, but has never worked in the food industry, but it's just a passion of theirs. Like they don't have any direct industry experience. It's going to be much harder for us to qualify them for something like that because they don't know anything about necessarily the industry. That's more of a, hey, you're going to have to try and open this on your own then. And maybe if you're successful, then maybe we can finance your second
Your
truck,
second truck, yeah. Your satellite tap room.
Yeah. So big things are industry experience for sure. And then also, down payment capacity and ability to come in with cash. Like we don't 100% finance really anything. Neither do conventional loans. Just like anything else, you're buying a house, buying whatever, you need to have some cash savings, some skin in the game, so to speak, when you're coming to look to do this. And that can also be potentially investors or, other people who want to be involved in your business rather than just you as the operator.
Or 6 packs of beer.
Yeah.
Does that change your mind? No.
I can make it rain non-labeled samples on you.
Just what everybody wants.
Just a bunch of silver cans.
Yeah. We'll start with that bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah, bribery doesn't work, unfortunately.
Damn.
How about coasters?
Those are
You're the
expensive.
only one that sees value in that. Well, I do too.
They're very valuable.
God, we got coasters the other day from one of our breweries, and I like emailed them immediately, and I was like, "Oh my God, I want 10 million more boxes of these."
It's early Christmas for sure.
It felt like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so green flags in general, like, down payment ability, and then cash flow essentially, and then industry experience.
Yeah.
So for somebody, go ahead, Bethany.
Oh, just would you say it's you're in a better position if you've already started a company and you can show P&L statements and stuff, and then you're trying to further it.
For sure.
Yeah.
So we definitely, the hardest time to ask for money is when you're relying upon projections. So if you're, you are in a startup phase, it's the hardest time to ask for money because the banks want to rely upon historic data in order to be able to do their underwriting. So everything that we like to look at, we like to say companies making XYZ amount of money on their bottom line. Let's say it's $50,000 is what you're netting at the end of the year after you've paid all your expenses. We want to sit there and then do some sort of ratio off of that to say, okay, what kind of debt load can they service? And it might be like $35,000 in annual debt payments, and then kind of back into like, here's what we could finance for you.
Just based on that.
Just based on what you've been making. And we obviously want to see real consistency too. We don't want to see big ups and downs and swings. And one year you're doing this, and then the next year you're $100,000 lower than that, and then the next year you're way back up in the black again. So
Speaking of the beer industry.
yeah, so consistency is obviously helpful. So projection based is always going to be a big uphill battle, and that's where we're trying to look for secondary sources. Like, do you have some sort of investor or somebody else who's a guarantor on this that can maybe add some strength and stability that we're maybe not getting from the business, but not everybody wants to give up their ownership stake to bring on, because then at that point it's like if you've got somebody who's got deep enough pockets, maybe you can find a different lending source rather than SBA.
Sure, that makes sense.
Because SBA rates are, I won't say they're not the worst rates out there. Better than a credit card or like a hard money loan, but it's definitely not the cheapest money in the marketplace.
Better than payday loans.
Yes, for sure. It's not predatory by any means, but
Well, it's just meant to be a tool. Like, it's just meant to be the right tool for the right situation. So, I was curious about this, and we talked about this a little bit, but like you said, somebody coming in without industry experience. So if I'm a home brewer and all of my friends love my beer, and they say it's awesome and that I should open up a brewery, and I call you. The fact that I am working on projections, even though all my friends and my mom loves my beer, is that a hard no? Like, would there be anything I could tell you that would be like, all right, we might be into this?
there might be some lender out there who might.
What if he
No.
cooks for you?
Or his
good.
wife cooks for you. She's good too.
Yeah, no, the product's obviously super important. That's ultimately what is going to get you to have sales and.
So you do
allow-
take bribes. That's a homebrew.
I mean, I'll try your
kidding.
homebrew, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get you a loan.
He's still going to tell you it's good.
This actually leads me to one of my questions from earlier was, okay, so I've quoted you and referenced you a lot on these episodes, just because you're
Bromance.
Yeah, for sure.
I can see it.
Similar salt and pepper in the beards, but you're somebody who I consider to be pretty well versed in beer. You're not really in the industry, but as a consumer, I think you know more than the average consumer. And so you and I talk a lot about what the industry's doing, what breweries are doing, who's good and who's not. If somebody presents to you a product, a beer, for instance, that you think might actually have broad market appeal, do really well, is high quality enough, does the quality of the product when they come in make a difference in this sort of thing, or is that too intangible? There's no guarantee there.
Yeah, I mean, it might influence my willingness to dig
Help
deeper
you.
into trying to I haven't necessarily dealt with any the breweries that I really, really enjoy, to the point where I've had to, be oh yeah, let's
Yeah.
really peel back.
Holy Mountain didn't come to you.
Yeah, I have no idea what their financial situation's like or what lender they're working with, if at all,
If any,
you
yeah.
know. But yeah, the ones that we have looked at, you know, like I'm not necessarily focused on their product specifically. You know, it's a lot of times when deals are hitting my desk, it's a dollars and cents sort of situation.
Gotcha.
You know, judging everybody by the numbers they're pumping out, really.
Yeah.
Is your inbox full? Are you getting a lot of inquiries?
I don't know that like breweries are necessary. I'm constantly busy with, you know, small business loans. So
Yeah.
a lot of like what my role at the bank is I would say 75% of my referrals come from commercial lenders in the branches and just people coming in off the street and saying, hey, I want to, and then I get a look at, and a lot of them don't necessarily even make it to a true like initial underwriting, because it's like, it's pretty easy to say, hey, you don't have experience or you don't even have a business plan or what, you know, like here's some resources for you to help you get some of this stuff and then maybe come back to me later. But yeah, no, job's always busy, but as far as like breweries necessarily, no. I mean, we've probably looked at 4 breweries over the last 4 or 5 years, and we weren't able to do anything for any of them. So I don't know that they're
I'm not
necessarily
surprised, really, by that.
that many are looking
At
or
SBA.
thinking that they can even get lending necessarily.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Sure.
there are thousands that are opening up every year. Now, last year there was only 100 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously a lot closed. So the ratio is flipping quite a bit.
Yeah.
That is a good point. Is like there are people who, I mean, brewers are still opening. Like there's a lot of fantastic breweries in Washington that are just a year old now. I think Recluse just celebrated their 1-year anniversary in Washougal, and they're making fucking excellent beer.
Recluse?
For sure.
Recluse, yeah. Oh man, they're awesome.
They're great.
Lee brings them up here, and like, they're doing great. But so like new breweries are opening, and you might be right that they're like, it is totally possible that they just don't even know that it's an option. But you mentioned a second ago that there are resources that you point people towards. If you had to list like some of the most key resources, if somebody was thinking about coming for SBA, like key resources for them before they set foot in your door.
Yeah. So a couple of the big ones that are more like non-profit, sort of adjacent for like business planning or putting together projections or even, you know, and it could be that you're dialed in as a business, but you're trying to expand, but you know, you're going to be required to put together projections and an expansion plan. And you've never done that before because maybe you went from your garage to your first, you know, operation. You've just kind of done it all on sweat equity and, you know, shoestring budget, and you've never had to do that kind of planning before.
Right.
The SBDC, so Small Business Development Center, is definitely one that we refer people to all the time. They have advisors at all of your community colleges, basically across the entire nation. So it's sbdc.org. And you get linked up. You type in your information, they connect you with an advisor. I don't know what their wait times are to be seen. But, you know, those advisors can help, you know, small businesses from everything from putting together business plans to even like lease negotiations. Because
That's cool.
most of them are former business world. They're either like, you know, maybe they were a former CPA and now they teach accounting at the community college, and then on the side they're an SBDC rep.
Right.
So that's a great resource for borrowers. The other one is score.org. It's Service Corps of Retired. It's either executives or entrepreneurs. I can't remember what the E stands for, but it's the same sort of program, just different organization. Does almost the exact same type of thing. And again, it's business advisory. There's also like a women's business one that I can't remember the acronym for it off the top of my head.
I think Abe did something quite similar before
Probably
she started Elk.
down
yeah.
in Olympia for sure. That's where they're in. That's where I've met their
Guaranteed that was
advisors.
it.
Yep. And then the only other thing is like once you are sort of like ready, the other big tool that I point people to when I can't do a deal is the SBA Lender Match program. So if you go to SBA and you just type in SBA Lender Match, it's like a short form that asks you who you are, what your contact information is, you know, what you're looking for, and then it literally sends it out to like 10,000 lenders like across the country who do SBA lending. And then
Who wants this? Raise your hand.
yeah, well, and then the lender themselves will click on like, oh, it's a trucking company, yeah, I'm interested, or it's a dental office, yeah, I'm interested, and then it becomes sort of like a Hinge, Tinder sort of like banking match thing where it's like they say they're interested.
They swipe on it.
They swipe right or left, and then it comes back to you, and then you get to do the same because they don't get your information until you accept, because you don't want to get be bombarded by 10,000 lenders from across the country. You want to be like, okay, 40 of them said they like me or want to hear more about my business. Now I'm going to pick these 3 to actually
Sure.
What do you take your bank date?
yeah.
I know, seriously.
to the Zoom conference room.
There's a joke somewhere in there. There's a better joke in there.
It's been a rough week.
Other than that, the only other things that I point people to is there's 2 nonprofit lending institutions that I deal with a lot, and one is Craft 3, and the other one is Business Impact Northwest, and both of them are they're nonprofit lenders, so they're funded by like grants and other like community investment type. I don't exactly know where they get all their funding from because I don't work for them.
Sure.
But essentially what they do is they do small business lending on more of a mission vision statement driven policy where like if, the numbers look pretty good, but it's kind of on edge, but you're like a minority owned or women owned or veteran owned business, you might have a higher likelihood of getting an approval through that sort of organization than you would through like a traditional bank.
Nice.
So those are other great tools and resources out there.
That's awesome. That's actually a long list.
Yeah, I mean,
Hope you guys are taking notes.
What were the last 2 you said?
so I mean, I can follow up with some of this information so you guys can like link it into your,
Hell yeah. That's
description of your podcast or whatever.
That's a perfect idea.
Yeah.
You should be doing this.
So smart.
Yeah, we will 100% link that stuff for anybody who didn't catch it all.
Yeah, there's a lot like small business. As a small business owner, there is so much out there and like a lot of different ways potentially to get money or loans and stuff, and it's overwhelming. So yeah.
Yeah, did you have to navigate that when you?
I still am. Yeah.
Yeah, you still are.
Yeah.
I mean, and you've like opened multiple businesses of your own as well.
Yeah, the brewery we didn't do any kind of loan.
Oh, because you had there was also separate ownership?
Yeah, we got like $300 to open the brewery. And no, he could not qualify for a loan.
Yeah.
So, and
Fair
we
enough.
didn't want to put our everything on the line
Sure.
for to do it. So yeah, so the brewery not as much, and yeah.
But with Funkbusters,
yeah,
you're still navigating that?
So you're telling me $300 of working capital is not
enough to open a brewery.
opening a brewery?
Short about $5 million. $1 million if
Perfect.
you're really
That's
good.
the cap.
Yeah, you want to.
Yeah.
You were asking for banking jokes.
Yeah.
There's an old banking joke that goes, it can really apply to any industry that you want to make fun of, but it's how do you make $1 million in the brewery industry or restaurant industry or whatever, right? Start with 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty good. So depressing right now.
Sorry.
Oh, man. Ron, did you have to navigate any of that stuff when you opened up Peaks?
I sold my business, so I didn't.
Yeah, that's
Self-funded.
Yeah,
self-funded.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure there's tons of freedom in that, as much as it might be very stressful at first.
Yeah. We just had great luck here too. Also.
Yeah.
Yeah. The proctor really wanted this place, and so
Sweet.
we were able to pay off our stuff pretty quick.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would say that's probably like 95% of businesses do what you're talking about. So it's, that's one of the things that I like about what I do is somewhat of the educational piece, the kind of like I don't have the ability to coach everybody on every little thing that walks in my door. That's not what my job is, but being able to provide resources and other avenues for them to hopefully get the tools to potentially get a loan is what, I'm sure a lot of them get discouraged and it doesn't actually happen for a lot of them, but
Sure.
feeling like you're doing good rather than just being some big corporate banking institution that doesn't care.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, or giving them a loan that they cannot in any way pay back, and
Yes.
then they're in a bad situation too. So
we don't
it's
want
not
that
like
either.
it's yeah.
Yeah, they're like,
Nobody wants
that doesn't
that.
help me or them.
Right.
Well, that's kind of a good point. I'm sure you don't have to say any specifics, but I'm sure there's maybe like success stories that you sort of see from the sidelines after working with somebody, and you see them opening up their 4th location or something like that. Like is that something you've like had the chance to kind of experience like that?
Yeah, for sure. We're working on a deal for a company right now that's like a pediatric PT/OT type business up in the Kent Auburn Valley area, and we did a loan for them. I want to say 2018 for like, I don't know, less than $100,000. And now they're just like bursting at their seams, and they're moving. Now they're getting like a $500,000, to move into this much larger facility. It's just, those success stories are always
That's awesome.
super cool. Love to see that. And that does happen probably more and more frequently the longer and longer I've been in this role. I see it more and more frequently. There's probably also a ton of other businesses that we help. They get their one loan that one time and then never. They just run their business, and
they're good for forever.
they got their loan. They're good. They're open. They're doing their thing.
Nice.
Don't have aspirations of that kind of growth. But as far as like breweries, no.
Which is fine.
Sorry.
Makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that's like you said. There's not even a ton that come across your desk, and there's I have like this. When you and I were talking about this, I had like this funny like old. There's like famous sort of like movie scenes where like people are standing in like the old bank offices in like the 60s, and they open up the briefcase and it's like all their baked goods that they're going to open up their business with. And like in my head, that's like what I picture is like somebody walking in with growlers of their homebrew and like Austin sampling through it. And like, it's just not, like you can't come in to do the SBA thing, like you said, without, like you can't just upgrade from your 10-gallon kegel system in your garage to,
I think a lot of that also has to do with just like general changes in banking regulation as well, just because, my dad was in banking as well. So back in the 70s and 80s, like, there was a lot more like nice firm handshake, write it down on the back of a paper napkin after you had three martinis.
Yeah, totally.
Like, come in on Monday and I got that loan ready to go for you.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's not the way the industry, and especially there might be a little bit more of that, that can happen on like more the conventional side for, you got your billionaire who wants a new plane or whatever. Like, he's just shaking Jamie.
They're probably
Dimon's.
good for it.
They're good for it. They're just figuring it out. So
I need a new asset, but I don't want it to be taxable for the first 10 years. So I'm going to go into debt on this.
I got more questions after the break.
I know. We're going to take a super quick break because apparently I need to go get some Czech dark lager from Ireland. And you guys do too, since you're just going to chug them.
We're on to the next beer. Now you're going to be one behind, but fine.
I guess. Well, stick around for just a minute. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Channel 253 sound producer Doug Mackey, and I want to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Indigenous Voices podcast from Fort Nisqually Living History Museum, located in Point Defiance Park. Now, if you haven't heard it yet, the podcast brings forward Native voices to tell Puget Sound history. The starting point is the Puget Sound Treaty War, an armed conflict between U.S. military, local militias, and the tribes involved in the Medicine Creek Treaty. The podcast features new dialogue between the different communities impacted by the Puget Sound Treaty War and its aftermath, which is still being felt today. The work for this podcast began 3 years ago, when Fort Nisqually brought together a panel of historians to discuss the legacy of the Puget Sound Treaty War with representatives from the Muckleshoot, Nisqually, Puyallup, Steilacoom, and Squaxin Island tribes. The Indigenous Voices podcast grew out of that award-winning program and has expanded to include discussions around the evolution of Native affairs throughout U.S. history, including topics such as school boards, tribal sovereignty, and land allotments. For many listeners, me included, the podcast has been a whole new angle on one of the most important events in state history. By centering tribal voices in the telling of Puget Sound history, the tribal knowledge and expertise really comes out. The Indigenous Voices podcast is available at fortnisqually.org and wherever you get your podcasts. My thanks again to Fort Nisqually Living History Museum for sponsoring this episode.
Welcome back, everybody. Sweet. It's every time. Welcome back. Thanks for hanging out during the break. As always, a shout out to Doug, our wonderful producer. I just saw the mic was turned around. Phaedra, are you on mic for this half?
Yeah, apparently. Doug just swung it around.
Sure. And then shout out to Chris, who's rocking video for us.
Hey,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you guys are listening and you haven't gone over and subscribed on YouTube, please do that. We're uploading all the old episodes and video of all the new episodes. And you can pretend that you're here getting sloshed with us, and it's a hoot and a half.
Who's getting sloshed?
And a half.
Sounds fun.
This is a two-parter today.
The next episode.
Getting plowed, not slush.
Great.
Pause.
Tis the season.
That was pretty good.
Good one.
And a quick shout out to Channel 253. I know you guys heard it on the break, but please do go support that fantastic network of local podcasts. Support independent media as much as you can, especially now, because it's very important. Yeah. We all have, I have new beer in front of us. You guys have already had it. But I'm drinking the other ones now.
Isn't it good though?
It is fucking
We didn't
excellent.
actually talk about it. I mean, it's like so smooth,
Super
so
chocolatey. Like the roast on it is like perfect.
little
Delicious.
toffee,
Yeah.
Other
so clean.
Otherlands.
Otherlands.
Other lands.
Other worlds.
Other worlds.
Yeah.
Other lands.
Yeah, it's
Everything they
delicious.
give us is amazing.
What are you drinking now, Austin?
I'm drinking the Cloudburst distinctive holiday ale thing.
Yeah,
Which,
me too. I read that.
Of course.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it was like a Anchor.
Yeah, it's a
Ode.
nod to our
Ode
special
to-
ale
yeah.
from Anchor.
Oh, was
All
it?
the spices in it.
Yeah, ton of spice.
Yeah.
What do you have in that big fancy glass, Ron?
Well, this is Block 15's Buzzworks.
Oh, yeah?
I
Awesome.
taste that.
Good. And this one is the Three Reisman from the Rubens
And you're
with no
You're
label on
no
it. So we
label.
popped it open.
perfect.
It was the three Reisman's delicious. But it always
Bethany, what do you have? You have 3 small glasses?
Ravenna Winter Ale, Wet Coast Winter Ale, and whatever is out of the unmarked bottle with the wax cap. Three Reisman.
I was going to say, you're just getting a running start.
Yeah, I'll test them out.
Well, shit. Cheers to Sean, since we're drinking a barley wine.
Cheers. Those who attended Peaks in the Hoppy Holiday food drive last night would have seen Sean Jackson moonwalk.
Oh, I did not. Oh, I'm so sad.
missed it.
I missed it too. I feel really
I mean, I was here
Moonwalk
for
to
the
grab
first
the
part.
trophy because E9 won. They gathered the most food.
Did they?
Yep.
Nice.
They
Good
won.
for them.
E9.
Fucking overachievers.
Did it look like Sean had practiced his moonwalk, or was it kind of like a, well, he's trying.
It's
so
just
it
natural.
so it looked
I think
good.
he's
And
always
Todd the
got that on
Bod
deck.
cheered him on.
Yeah, for
Of
sure.
course he did.
That would give you a power up. All right. Back to serious money stuff.
Yeah, well, you were talking about back in the 70s with your dad and the handshake and stuff. But it's also like, well, there weren't as many entrepreneurs back then, probably. A lot of like smaller businesses. Like now I think people are relying less on big corporations to kind of keep them safe as they grow older and stuff. And so there's probably more of like an influx of small business. So then like also a lot more vetting that has to happen because of that.
Sure. I
Maybe.
mean,
Or
I think
what
there's,
do you think of
there's
that?
probably always been a ton of small business in the U.S. I feel like we used to be plenty of small business, just different industry types, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely been a conglomeration of a lot of industries over the last 20, 30 years, I'm sure. So, but I also think that is leading to, like you're referencing, a lot of people in maybe like a corporate or tech world. Well, I see that a lot where there's a lot of, you know, we get a lot of people looking for other avenues to kind of exit from the
Grind.
yeah, the daily
Yeah.
grind.
Are
yeah.
you getting loan applications from influencers?
No, no,
Nice.
No, not
Ron's
yet.
this close to asking you for money for the podcast right now.
Say if
If 4 degenerates from the beer industry.
needed a new soundboard.
A love for barley wine.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. No, but we financed like an ice cream shop recently for somebody who's been in the tech world, and they just They had a good amount of savings. They had some, I guess, past. They have a ton of like managerial experience. A lot of like, white collar job experience of managing people and managing teams. And this was like, an ice cream shop. It's not a ton of like technical. I mean, you've got a couple of high school kids scooping ice cream into a cup for people. It's retail. It's pretty easy, and the investment on their part wasn't super high. The actual ask to do that startup wasn't super high. They had a decent amount of savings, so it made sense to be able to do something like that. A lot of times where I see most people exiting the tech world or exiting like white collar corporate world is they've identified super successful like small businesses that may be like a local HVAC company that's kicking butt, and they're coming in to like do essentially a corporate buyout, get a $4 million loan, and come in and manage and run a well-established business, so they don't have to start something up on their own. I see that far more frequently in with those specific industry people trying to exit. So
I didn't even think about that. Getting a loan, just buy an established and they're just like, oh, this is mine now.
that's actually probably.
That must be super common.
If you want to own a brewery, maybe that's the route to go. Find a super successful one and buy their owners out.
And then
Manny
come and
and
talk
Roger.
to me. Yeah.
I think you may need more than $5 million.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, they exceed the cap.
Yeah, that's a little outside of my capacity.
Sure. You mentioned on the first half the times where it's like really difficult or like the hardest to ask for money. We didn't really touch on the times where it's like the easiest or the best time to ask for money. And I'm curious like what falls into that category.
Yeah, the best time to ask for money is when you don't need it. That's number one.
It's very counterintuitive.
100%. That's what we tell business owners all the time. Especially even on the commercial side, the conversation is ask, get your line of credit or whatever when you have tons of cash, because you don't know when you're going to be in that cash crunch. And if you're in that cash crunch, that's the worst time to ask for it.
Yeah.
So, the best time to come, is when you're in a really stable, solid position. Like, let's say you have an existing location open and you're thinking about opening a second location. That's really the time to come. It's like, I could basically open this on my own. I could self-fund it. That's when you're going to have a high likelihood of success coming to the bank, is because the bank's going to look at the numbers and be like, you're doing great. Like, you almost don't even need a loan. Of course we'll take your money to give you this money.
So what's the benefit? Like if somebody's in a position where they could almost do it themselves, what would be the benefit then of maybe approaching, an SBA loan?
Yeah, if you're gonna, the benefit to you is like cash is king in the world at the end of the day. And if you've got, a $500,000 build out of a new, space or tap room or whatever it is, and you've got $600,000 saved, do you really want to spend all 500, of your $600,000, and then all of a sudden, what if it's not working out initially? Now you're cash strapped and you have two locations, and businesses overexpand all the time and then fall flat on their face, and then then you are coming to the bank at that point to ask for money, and we're saying,
yeah, when you're like, whoa,
no, thank you.
It seems like you really need this. So what does that mean for us?
Yeah, so the time to do it is when you have all that capacity to get a loan. Is even if you don't think you need it, like that may be the best time to get it, and then keep your money in your pocket for a rainy day.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you're paying for the cushion. Like something could go wrong with a build out. It could end up taking way longer, and your labor costs are way higher than expected during that time. And like you said, cash is king. Your cushion is bigger, and it might cost you something, but at least it's there.
Plus, the other big thing is you get the experience of working with the lending institution. Maybe you've stepped into a lease space and you didn't really have to do much for your first location, or maybe you just don't have a lot of experience in putting this thing together. Like we constantly deal in, this world. So vetting contractors, making sure that they're above board, making sure that they're licensed, bonded, certified, that you're going to be on time. That. You're going to get your deliverable. It's going to, we're going to pay them. They're going to be kept on track. Like there's not going to be as many hiccups in the process.
Because you're advocating for your own money in this process.
Yeah. Well,
that's such a good point.
We're managing the whole process for you. We're getting you approved ahead of time. And before they even break ground, we know they're vetted. They're not getting paid because they're coming to us to get paid, and we're not cutting. They say electrical's done. We're doing site inspections and coming out and looking, yep, okay, electrical's in. Here's your check.
That's so interesting.
Managing it all for you.
I didn't think about that at all, but like I can't imagine how much stress that. I mean, like I hear it all the time. I mean, from breweries that I work with, but just friends who are small business owners, doing that kind of stuff takes up so much fucking time, and like. Yeah, negotiating with contractors, keeping things on deadline. If you guys are advocating for your own money that you're putting into this project and you're taking over that is like, I mean, that's worth quite a bit.
Yeah, it's definitely the service. And then, getting back to like retaining your own cash and working capital and this whole thing is, if something does go wrong, it's a lot easier to cut bait and run potentially on something like that. If you have the capacity to sort of like, oh, this isn't working out, we're going to, kind of
close shop,
move back to what we were already doing,
focus on somewhere else,
focus on, or bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have this loan outstanding, but like we can still make the payment. Now we don't have the second location that's sucking money because we're losing money on it or whatever, because it just didn't work out, versus you've gone, potentially gone the other route and spent all your cash and then it's not working out.
And you're strapped from both ends. I'm like getting hot just thinking about like how stressful this shit is. I'm like, I don't own a business. I barely run one. And I'm like sitting here like, oh, this sounds awful.
Yeah. Entrepreneurs have a different mindset. That's for sure. And, you don't always know what you don't know until you kind of
smacks you in the fucking head. Yeah, dude.
So
we were joking a bit too about like, cause I work for a distribution company, and small breweries, small producers of all kinds of beverages approach us all the time, and we're always open to hearing them out. But it is funny, like some of the similarities, like there's a lot of people who are really good at making a product and maybe not so great at like the business side, and like it's really difficult to bring somebody on if I feel like I have to teach them like what every acronym, if I have to explain to you what an FOB is, then we're gonna have a difficult relationship over the next like 2 years. That might mean that your position in the market is affected negatively. So is there anybody else there I could talk to about this stuff? Like it's just, and it's like, we joke a lot about like, not all brewers are great business people. Like a lot of brewers we're engineers first, or we're chefs first, and they get great at making beer and they make great beer, and then they're the ones who we're like trying to talk to about the business stuff. And it's difficult and stressful, but I like the idea. First of all, there are resources. I should just write down that list for them. Yeah, be like, hey, can you go listen to this podcast and write down these business plan resources? But it's difficult. Even if their product is good, if I feel like they don't totally know enough about the market or enough about this business, it's like too risky to represent a brand like that. So it's it's a conversation we end up having a lot, but it sounds very similar to maybe some of the vetting that you guys do when you're doing SBA stuff.
Yeah. We're ultimately working with small businesses, and everybody's got their own quirks and practice. Obviously people who have their stuff dialed in probably have hopefully a good banking relationship, hopefully, a good bookkeeper or something. If they're, I'm sure a lot of businesses do a lot of that stuff internally, but sometimes it's good to have those people on your quote unquote team to make it so you can focus on
the thing you do
well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point actually, is like, if you're, like you said, entrepreneurs are kind of built different. And so like, they'll just take a lot of that stuff on themselves, which is fine. Yeah. But like, if you're, spending 60% of your time trying to handle a business side when you should just be making an excellent product, excellent beer, you should be brewing excellent beer. How is it negatively affecting? If you had more people on your team who could handle this side, or talk with somebody like me, then you just give me beer and it's great.
Or a partner when you're coming in, somebody to, like Manny and Roger, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
Somebody can do one side and somebody can do the other side.
Totally. Yeah.
I think of Ray and Barry at like Yummy.
They're great at that.
It seemed like they had their lanes that they were in, and
perfectly symbiotic.
Are in. They're still around.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed like a good partnership.
No, it's perfect. That's actually a great example of like that exact thing, because Barry is like, he is like comically not oblivious, but like it's a joke to him that he does not do anything like that. He's like, that's a Ray thing. But then he makes like this fantastic world-class beer, but it's also because Ray is there to support that, and like he can put all of his energy and effort into it.
Yeah.
And then like when there's issues, Ray calls and it's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is, having obviously like a supportive but also business-minded person, if you're looking at starting a brewery or expanding your brewery, is probably a good move too. You did actually, you mentioned before when you and I were talking about like, if somebody is coming to you to get like co-ownership out of the picture, like I didn't quite like follow up with it, but like, there's a situation where somebody might come to you who had like initial investors and then might come for an SBA loan to buy out the shares. Is that what you were referring to?
Yeah, we do a lot of business acquisition deals through the SBA program, because a lot of times with businesses that are established, the assets of the business, there's a lot of goodwill. So like in the future sales or the brand name of that business, and goodwill is not a tangible asset. So there's nothing, it's blue sky value. It's future ongoing sales of the company. And a lot of times, so that's why we do a lot of those through the SBA. So what you're talking about is a partner buyout. It's a similar thing. It's a business acquisition, but it's just less of, instead of buying 100% of the business, you're already there, you're already running it, you're already doing it. So you kind of are checking the boxes of, hopefully I have vested equity because I already own potentially 50% of the company or whatever it is.
Right.
I already have experience because I'm here, I own it, I run it.
Yeah.
Right. So you're kind of hitting some of those initial like check boxes. And then it's like, hey, I just need money to get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
Or gal or whatever it is.
This guy hates Kolsch's. He needs to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah. All I want to do is brew barley wine in this cup.
Yeah.
He thinks it's a bad idea.
Dude, yeah. I just had a conversation with a brewery last week, and they were like on the distribution side, there's all kinds of ways to write like operating agreements, and some distributors will write things like sales goals or sales targets or volume requirements. You guys have to buy this much from my brewery every single month, or you're in breach of contract. And one of the we generally don't do that. And there's a lot of places that do, a lot of places that don't, for various reasons. One of the reasons why we don't do it is because we work with really small breweries who can change their shit on a dime. And if I work with a brewery and like we're contractually obligated to buy like 50 kegs a month or whatever, but then they decide randomly that they want to make like satis from now, like all they make is satis, and I'm like, I can't sell 3 of those, much less 50, and then we're the ones in breach because you made a goofy decision about your business. So like that, I was just explaining that to somebody who's like, hey, how come you guys don't do that? Well, because like how well your beer sells in the market has a lot more to do with the decisions you make versus the decisions we make. And at least at the small business level, like we have less than 20 employees. We're smaller than a lot of our breweries that we work with. Yeah, when you're small and flexible, like, we can't be beholden to that shit. Your guys' weird decisions.
Weirdos.
I know. Sell my weird shit before I starve to death. Every fucking week, I swear to God.
Sounds like a fuck up story.
It is, dude. Honestly, I've had so many. It's not really a fuck up story, but we do get this all the time. And I have breweries that listen, and I'm not talking about any of you. But everybody else. Yeah, they'll make weird beers, and then they're like, how come you're not buying any of this? Although this is actually where I really love Barry, because he will tell us way in advance. He's like, hey, I have a wild hair, and I want to make like a barrel-aged Doppelbock or something, which is a beer I would fucking buy.
I would drink that all day.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Fucking transmuter from Varietal. It's like one of the best beers ever made. But he'll tell me way ahead of time with the like inclination that we probably are not going to buy very much. And he's like, how much would you guys buy if I made this much available? And I know it's not gonna be a lot, but like, could I talk you into, and like he already comes into it like knowing it's weird and knowing it's gonna be hard to sell us
I think that's the way to do it,
Totally.
better than just say, hey, so I've got all this shit in the
I have
tank,
80
the
cases
kegs are
of
gonna be
this-
ready,
yeah.
and so go. It's your job to get rid of them.
I have asked you 90 times to give me your fucking brew schedule so that I could tell you how way in advance that I would only buy 9 cases of this weird fucking beer you are offering. You made 60 cases of this shit. and you have to sell it all out of your tap room now. Anyway, speaking of goofy
Just say,
business,
tell him to call me. I'll tell him what to brew. I'll tell him what I'll drink.
my friend Austin said he would buy this.
He said,
He's my consumer resource.
Well, it's that hard balance of people want the same good things they always have, but they want something different too.
but not too different.
But not too different.
But only what they
different.
want.
Yeah, but that's some weird ingredient, but not too much. It's hard out there. Yeah.
Fucking fickle industry. I'm complaining about my brewers, but they're really just trying to adapt to whatever consumers want, which is changing all the time.
All the time.
What do you want?
Yeah, I know. Just
We don't
tell
know.
me what you want.
We don't know. We think we know, but we really don't know.
I know. If only there was like an app where everybody could like list their beer preferences on like a general enormous scale. Yeah. And if only people in the industry would take it seriously even a little bit, because this is your entire consumer audience telling you their fucking proclivities. Sorry, that's not none of that's a fuck up.
But don't sell my data.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Well, yeah. Before we close out, are there any banking fuck ups we can?
I mean, sure. There's all sorts of. No, I don't fuck up. I mean, I guess there could be like fuck ups in the sense of like lamenting about maybe a brewery that I said no to that is doing well.
Oh yeah.
You know, not going to name names of.
But you've seen some.
There's been a couple that we've said no to that have been doing well. That I'm like, good for them. You know, like I'm happy. Like I like that. You know.
Yeah.
But as far as like, I don't know, I told a fuck up story last time, personal embarrassment. I don't think I have any new ones in the last 3 weeks or whatever.
That's fair. I feel like I gave us a lot of good credit for fuck ups because I told like 5 or 6 on the last one. I got so many text messages. I've totally left the gate open and driven away and lost empty kegs. Even Keith, which I didn't. I thought Keith was perfect.
Even Keith?
What?
Keith,
No.
He was like, I've done every single one of those, and I was like, get the fuck out of here. And he's like, it's been 30 years, man. I've done every single one of those.
I love it. I love that he said something too.
I know, me
Which
too. It
is
actually made
just-
me feel really good.
Which is precisely why we all love him so much,
I know,
right?
seriously.
Because he did fess up to it. So.
Any F up stories?
I don't have any.
I don't either. Right.
That's
now,
okay.
At the moment.
Oh, whenever we were here together last, I said cigar. What'd I say? Not cigar. Jesus. What?
I don't know. This sounds like a fuck up right now.
I said.
Good work.
I said
new
Luger
ginger
handle
place,
instead
the
of
You said Luger handle?
Instead of K. Last time I
The
was
new
on.
ginger timber.
Timber.
I said Timber City and it's Timber. No, I said Timber Creek and it's Timber City. That's what I did.
Does that count as an F up?
I think so.
Yeah.
If I'm supposed to be fact check Fader and I get the fucking name of the place wrong, then
Well,
yeah.
you're fix it, Phaedra, now. So.
So yeah, so it's Timber City, not Timber Creek. So
Still
anyway,
PH.
We were talking over
Yeah,
each other.
PH.
So
Yeah.
I said Luger handle, and I mispronounced Luger handle, and I listened to it back, and I was like, "Oh God, I sound like a fucking idiot." On the beer podcast. God.
all right.
I mean, that's just the Czech pronunciation. You got it.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. I'm just super sophisticated.
Okay, here's a dumb one. I know you're about to go, Ron. So there was a while where people were trying to like phonetically spell how to pronounce like certain beer styles, and goose, like blended lambic, came out, and so like the way that you would phonetically spell that, which people were doing for a while when it started getting popular, was G-U-R-Z-U-R, but they were spelling it out for languages that are non-rhotic, so that don't pronounce the R's. But there are some people who just saw it phonetically and weren't thinking Gurza, like, which is how you would say it, in like a British accent, which is non-rhotic. They were saying Gurzer. So like I heard maybe like 10 people over the course of like 2 years say Gurzer when they were talking about goose. Pretty gross.
Hurts your brain.
I didn't correct any of them because who the fuck am I? But gonna talk about you now.
Gerzers.
I know. So yours is
All right, Grit and Grainers.
All right.
Email us at Cheers and Grit and Grain Podcast. Grit and Grainers. Excellent. With your comments, opinions, and weird banking password tips, such as I noticed that a bank site now offers an array of new password hint questions. Name of your first pet is no longer a menu item, so I elected to check the box. next to name of first person you ever kissed. At first I thought, not understood the relationship between teenage pecs and student loans, but I realized that both had a great deal to do with miscalculation. We read and drink everything we receive, and we try to respond as fast as we can. If not online, then on air. You can subscribe to Grit and Grain on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. Please leave us a review. Also check us out on Channel 253 and gritandgrainpodcast.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for episode notes, beer news, and bank loan tips. As simple, really. All you have to do is close your eyes and remove all barriers of self, and then realize it's all one big, hazy, gorgeous, teeming self-aggrandizing, neurotically bliss circus freak show crammed with deliciously parcelable moments of scathing, bitter repayment terms in which you can relocate yourself with relative ease if only you could slow your breathing and rub your hands together really, really fast and hum Pink Floyd's Money while dreaming of applicable interest rates and payments due dates and required methods of payment and bowls of mints at the bank exit. If this podcast is not what you expected, please alter your expectations. Have you read the book about Lehman Brothers? It had me on the edge of my seat the entire time. Bit of an abrupt end at the chapter 11, though. No such thing as a bad time to visit Tacoma. No such thing as too much barley wine. Tune in next Friday for more sweet chatter. Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, Austin.
Thanks, Austin.
That was a great chapter 11.
That was awesome.
Thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us at Grit and Grain Podcast wherever you get your social media and catch new episodes every Friday. Cheers.
Channel 253 is member supported. I'm producer Doug Mackey, and I hope you will show your support by going to channel253.com/membership and join. Thank you. Grit and Grain is part of the Channel 253 podcast network. Check out our other shows: Nerd Farmer, Interchangeable White Ladies, Move to Tacoma, Crossing Division, Citizen Tacoma, What Say You, We Are Tacoma, Flounders B Team, and Taco Man.
This is Channel 253.
Get up.